Finally, what does soccer think of itself? I spoke with Dan Courtemanche from MLS to get those answers.
Soccer as a sport is extremely popular in the United States. Studies will show that there are more than 90 million fans of the sport of soccer. Our goal here at Major League Soccer is to convert all of those fans of soccer into fans of Major League Soccer, our clubs, and our players to grow and elevate the sport. People also forget that we're a nation of more than 50 million people of Hispanic origin. That's larger than the size of the country of Spain, nearly the size of England, and 85% of those individuals of Hispanic origin come from countries where soccer is the #1 sport. So we don't have to necessarily convert them into fans. The audience is already there. Now, I'd actually disagree. If you look at the international exhibition matches that we put on in all parts of the country through our marketing arm, Soccer United Marketing, we'll have an international match play on a Wednesday night in February in Los Angeles, and we'll draw more than 90,000 people. But you might say, okay, there's a lot of people, a lot of Mexican Americans in Los Angeles. That makes sense. However, we do the same thing. It was in early March last year in Charlotte, North Carolina, and nearly 65,000 people came out for an international exhibition match. So there are fans of soccer out there. Might not necessarily be those editorial decision makers or hosts from a sports radio station, English sports radio, because clearly Spanish sports radio, it exists, but the sport of soccer is extremely popular and arguably on par with most of the other major sports. We need to continue to build Major League Soccer as a league to get it up to the level of some of the other sports. That's a bit of a leading question because my opinion is that it will not always lag behind and be a niche sport. In the sport of soccer, as I mentioned with some of the statistics, with more than 90 million fans of the sport, and that's independent research, indicates that it's not a niche sport. Some people might say Major League Soccer and its clubs are still a bit of a niche league, and we're only in our 16th season, and that's understandable. But the sport is growing. This is a league that started in 1996 with 10 teams. We'll have 19 teams in 2012, 15 of those clubs playing in soccer-specific stadiums or stadiums built with soccer in mind. So the sport's growing. With English sports radio, soccer is a niche sport. On the internet, that's our talk radio. That's where people, 18 to 34 or 12 to 17 are going to, and that's our audience. Our audience, we're not targeting people above 34. We wish and we hope they come out to our games, but our marketing isn't going toward those folks who might be listening to standard English language sports radio or the sports reporters on ESPN, which I like that show, but I'm older than 34 now, so take that into consideration. But the bottom line is we're targeting our efforts with new media, with Facebook. We're talking to people directly versus relying on print media or sports talk radio. And another interesting statistic is people under the age of 30, studies have shown that only 8% of them actually read the print newspaper on a regular basis. Their first place where they get their news and information, Facebook and Twitter. Yeah, for a couple things. One, the physical aspects of the sport of soccer. Anybody who's ever played at a high level certainly knows that it's not the case of it being an unmanly sport or anything like that. We've got multiple players in MLS who have had cracked cheekbones and cracked skulls, and we don't wish that upon anyone. But if you're going in the box for a header or trying to score, it's an extremely tough sport on the body, and we're actually looking at ways to make it easier so athletes don't have these type of injuries. Every sports league out there right now is really analyzing concussions, and we're just like the other sports leagues. We have a whole concussion committee that's analyzing that, so it is an extremely physical sport. When it comes to scoring, we look at scoring opportunities. We need to create more scoring opportunities, and ultimately those opportunities need to become goals. If you're a goalkeeper, you might disagree, but it's something that we have a technical staff here at the league office. Our coaches, our players are all consistently analyzing the game to increase the scoring opportunities and make it more exciting for the general sports audience, but also our soccer fans. People want to be able to sit on the edge of their seat and wonder what's going to happen next, and scoring opportunities present that. When it comes to diving, Everybody wishes there'd be less diving in soccer, but we also wish there'd be less feigning of injuries in other sports too, or less guys trying to act like they just got fouled in basketball, whether it's at the professional or the collegiate level. So we all face these challenges. Well, certainly winning the World Cup would convince a large percentage of the population that the United States is one of the best countries in the world at soccer. But the reality is we are one of the up-and-coming countries in the sport of soccer, and we regularly compete successfully at the World Cup. Or a precursor to the World Cup is called the Confederations Cup, which was played the summer before the World Cup, and we finished second. We beat the #1 team in the world in Spain to advance to the final to play Brazil, where unfortunately we lost to Brazil, arguably one of the best teams in the world. So the U.S. is getting better and better each year. We've qualified for every World Cup since 1990. Oh, by the way, from 1950 to 1990, we didn't qualify for any World Cups. So maybe some of the older generation remembers that 40-year period where we didn't qualify at all, but we've qualified every World Cup since then, and we expect to qualify for the next one. From a professional level, it certainly helps. The old North American Soccer League, which was around from 1968 to 1984, really set the table for people to learn the game here in the United States and also Canada. People like myself, I grew up a fan of the New York Cosmos, or in my hometown, the Denver Dynamo. It got me playing soccer at a young age in the mid-70s, and now individuals who are my peers are in decision-making roles at places like an ESPN or a Univision or a Pepsi or Adidas, and they're making decisions as to how do they spend their money, whether it's on television programming, corporate sponsorship, or other business relationships, and that's really beneficial to all of us in the soccer business. Probably the biggest asset for all of us in the soccer business is that the United States is really the first country made up of all other countries. We are the true global melting pot. Soccer is the world's game, so I mentioned some of the figures with more than 50 million people of Hispanic origin, or all the individuals who are coming over from Europe, and they love the game. The other aspect is that young generation who might have grown up with it, with the New York Cosmos or the LA Aztecs in the old NASL days, and now their kids are playing. So, you know, we're starting to see where the fathers are teaching their kids soccer versus maybe in my generation, my dad was teaching me baseball or hockey, which is great. We encourage people to still teach them those other sports, but soccer is becoming part of that mix and part of the culture and ultimately becoming much more culturally relevant. So a lot of folks might say, well, geez, if soccer was a stock, it's kind of in a buy mode right now because they see the opportunity on the horizon. Let me give you a quick stat. All the international players that came into our league this year during the off season, you spoke with Mondragon, who was the oldest.
Yep.
What do you think the average age was?
If I had to guess, it would be in the low 30s.
25 and a half.
25 and a half. And Mondragon brings that up.
Yeah. But people don't know we're signing, we signed a Colombian FC Dallas signed a Colombian under-20 national team player who was courted by multiple teams in Europe, and we paid a pretty large transfer fee for him. So our clubs are really focusing on bringing younger players into the league. They just aren't as famous as a Beckham, an Henry, or a Marquez. Sure. A few things. We anticipate that we'll be, all of our clubs will be playing in stadiums built or controlled, or built for the clubs, soccer-specific stadiums, or venues where they're controlled by the owner, such as Seattle, where they play in an NFL stadium, but they average 40,000 fans per game, or near 40,000 fans per game. Certainly we want to see an increase in our television revenue and our partnerships in that area. We want to see a growing corporate sponsorship arena. We want to see probably more teams. We're looking at expanding to a 20th team, likely in 2014, potentially 2013. Our current focus is a second team in the New York market, but we certainly anticipate that over the next 10 or 20 years we'll be at 24 or certainly more than 24 clubs. So continuing to grow, but also managing that growth and ultimately working on improving the quality of play. So we will be considered one of those top leagues in the world. We want to reach the point where a young player coming up in Major League Soccer and doing well is thinking, all right, I want to get my next big contract, and it's going to be with the New York Red Bulls or the LA Galaxy, versus I want to get my next big contract and go play for FC Barcelona or Manchester United. Here we are at the end. I started out with a simple question: where does soccer fit in the U.S.? I went out, I interviewed a bunch of people, I got a lot of opinions. I've asked myself several times throughout this entire process whether or not my opinion mattered. Now that I'm looking back on it all, I think it may be my opinion that matters most. I'm the future of soccer in this country. I'm a father of 2 young children. If my kids decide to play soccer because they see me playing soccer, then that's going to affect how things go in the future for this sport. My kids already know who Thierry Henry is. My kids know who Joel Limper is. My kids ask to go to Red Bull games. That's the future of soccer in this country.
Well, the story is getting old when you get out on the road and you're doing what you're told just to get paid now. When your hands are tied around the pact you never signed, and you're sleeping with the right to get a little fed now. But you just have to learn to live without it any way you can. Only lose the battle of the band. When your body's old and tired, you're so drunk and uninspired, and you hope for getting fired just to get away now. Well, I hope you'll understand, when the line's drawn in the sand, you'll be sinking where you stand and coming up for air now. But you'll just have to learn to live without it any way you can. You will only lose the battle of the band. Sometimes you get it in your own mind. You're sleeping on the back line. You're making